New York State Thruway, which you can hear, 6-lane highway. It was never closed. It was cut down to 1 lane in each direction, and it was slowed down considerably because you had state troopers directing traffic. Smoke was thick, and of course this has to happen during peak rush hour, evening rush hour. So now you're affecting about 10,000 commuters. 10,000 people were very, very, very unhappy. And being in Albany, the capital city of the great state of New York, we have a lot of political activity here, and we're very much in the political eye anyways, where we are and who we're involved with. So we had a number of politicians on site here, right on 155, a lot of black sedans, the mayor of the city, executive staff from state agencies. One person in particular I remember yelling, got me fired, which is not very comfortable. The governor, got the attention of the governor. The governor came out later that summer to see, to evaluate the site. And lessons learned, burning in this fuel type, I've said to every other group, burning a long linear unit with steep topography at the top of the slope, in dormant pine barrens fuels, with low RHs, significant days since rain, and pretty low fuel moistures. To do that again? Probably not. And we've obviously incorporated a lot of things that we do now to modify that we don't burn under in those situations. And Craig mentioned, burning here is challenging because of small units. Small units are very dangerous to burn. Very dangerous because you have so much fire on the ground in such little black on. They're very challenging. Remember I mentioned this morning about these post-burn questionnaires that we'd send out? But for the most part, most people said that you need to keep burning. The pine bush needs to burn. You need to burn to reduce the chance of wildfires in the future. And then they'd usually say, comma, but be careful.
Don't burn this.
I think one of the things that always compels me about situations like this are the individual stories. And when Wendy was talking at that corner, what she felt and what she heard and what she was thinking was very compelling. I think I read a lot of fire investigation reports, and every one of them has an uh-oh moment where you realize that it's gotten past you, and you have to now take a different kind of action, take a whole different approach to what you're doing. And the other thing that fascinates me about that is that the idea of those holes in the cheese lining up. The whole idea of preoccupation with with failure. Someone said, you can never predict what an individual's reaction is going to be. And the fact that she was sitting in that corner and her only communication was out of communication with her, and another person comes by, she has no communication with that. Those three individuals interacting with no interaction was a really key point, I think, to that whole scenario.
There was a real key point in there that most people in this business come from a biological science background or a technical fire background, and we tend to approach fire as a technical and biological thing, and it's a human thing as long as we're out there doing it. And the point that you can never predict what an individual is going to do or how individuals are going to interact.
One thing that I noticed was when we got on the second station where the fire came up the ridge and where she spotted down the line, the thing I got from that is, and it seems to be a common theme every time we lose a fire, is that's when the burn was wrapping up. Everything was looking good. They had this thing in the bag. And that's when a lot of fire is when you lose it. When you're at that point, you figure this is done. And we do aerial attacking, when we think we got a line around it, we say, okay, it's done. Done. That's when she jumps the line and it's gone again. So it seems to be a common theme on a lot of fire. At that point, maybe it's reluctance to simplify. You think you got it in the bag, you let your guard down, and that's when you get away. That's one thing I noticed.
I like that. I like that you link that to reluctance to simplify. I never really thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right. We got it in the bag. You just simplified a day's activity into a couple of words.
I think that one of the things that I was really struck by in talking to everyone was the fact that when stuff started to go wrong and people started to get really kind of panicked and emotional, the thinking and response just seemed like sometimes people started acting without really thinking hard about what they were doing. And when adrenaline gets pumping and people start to get panicked, that can happen. So it seemed like it's really important to have a really detailed and well-planned contingency plan so that responses are almost second nature, because in a really highly charged atmosphere, if things aren't second nature, it seems like that's kind of where things started to fall apart.
One of the things that struck me as we were going through the stations, a couple of people said, a couple of the presenters said that they were uncomfortable before the burn even started. And I think one of the things that points to is that a lot of us are uncomfortable before a burn starts. It's a nervous thing to do, because something could go wrong. But I think it's really important for us to really search to get to what our discomfort is, because you might identify something before the burn starts that could prevent something from going wrong. So really getting to the heart of those weak signals. The other thing I wanted to mention is that as bad as these incidences are for the people that are involved, and I hate to say it's good that they happen occasionally, but I know that all of us learn a lot from the things that go wrong. And I know for me, especially on the walking on the SAP ride, that I learned a lot from it, and I know everybody in the Conservancy did too. So there's always a gold lining in everything. So.
Certainly very impressed when I initially saw the report in terms of what was done and how quickly things were captured. Certainly that's very impressive, and that sort of definitely shows the commitment to the working partnerships you've had and the resilience of the crews. And but also having, after walking around the line and certainly seeing and the different areas, different field types, hearing the different stories, it brings home the importance to make sure we don't have an over-reliance on resilience. And that I'm saying in terms of we're all pretty flexible, pretty talented individuals, and obviously it showed through on this one here, and I'm sure many folks on the different wildfire events and described burns. where, oh, that one guys are skilled and they can figure this one out. And that comes into balancing the resilient nature with also making sure you fully work your way through that, looking at the total preoccupation with failure in terms of the looked at it there. We may get with spotting, it may happen, may even had crews pre-positioned in a containment area. But was it planned what was going to happen ahead of time if the spotting occurred? Didn't sound like that was there because everybody ended up sort of doing, becoming incident commanders themselves. And so if we're going to rely on the incident command system, when this happens, happens with us, we say, oh, if it gets over at the end of the containment area, not a big deal, we'll deal with it then. As opposed to saying, when it gets in the containment area, what are we going to do? And that way, you could be looking at, okay, now it gets it out of here, okay, what are these guys over here going to do when this happens? Well, I can't do anything. We're going to backburn off this. And I guess I find this really important because we did learn some major steps in our organization. We do prescribed fire and wildfire. I think it's really important to sit down, look at the potential scenario, make sure you run that instant command system backbone through it to make sure that not only we looked at the big picture and what the potential, but now what would you do if that happened, and are you set up to deal with that in terms of people qualified to manage that?
Interesting point about kind of overcommitment to resilience. The folks that were at the movie night last night know that I believe that all of these principles have a flip side, a dark side, what I sometimes call taking them to the psychotic extreme. And fire organizations are resilient organizations by nature. They have to be. And we do rely too much on our ability to bounce back. Oh, well, if bad stuff happens, we will, we'll overcome it because we always do. And we see, you look around at the tragedy fires and you realize, that is part of our mindset, and that mindset gets us in trouble.
When you saw, expertise fail, technology fail, tactics fail, but relationships didn't, or at least the important ones, because there was some very important relationships that did fail, but that it was able to work through that, and that was really based on that pre-work.
But with the partnership concept, I was thinking how important partnerships is not just with your outreach in your community, but within your own work groups and within your own organization with your TNC partners to help build resiliency, and how important it was in all the HRO principles to have various levels of partnerships to enhance that. And the other thing that really struck me is how important AARs are. I would have liked to have heard more about, because there was a constant repetition of we did 3 AARs, and what you learned from that and how that helped you build an HRO organization. That really just struck me, and what we could do for ourselves and for our own organizations to look at AARs before, sort of a backwards way of preoccupation with failure.
The thing that I've learned the most is, and from an administrator who looks out a window and rarely ever gets out, is I'm going to be a lot more comfortable saying no. I did it with one of our crews this fall. I just wasn't sure about it. The supervisor was going to be missing, not a part of the incident command at all, but just a supervisor for the burn boss. And I just said, no, we're not going to do it. Fine, we'll just find another window, find another opportunity to do that. And part of that is it comes out. There is still this need at a level above operations to be able to see things and to sometimes just say no, that we have a feeling there's some issues here. And I say that to you, not to aggravate you, whatnot, but to basically say how important it is to have all your ducks in a row, and even keep looking for new things out there to take into consideration. Just because everything has worked for you in the past, and yes, you are making certain improvements, doesn't mean you or we are missing something real big on the next burn that we're going going to look at. So, yeah, I'm going to be more apt to say no, but I think that's going to push the people burning, and certainly in my organization, the burn bosses, to be that much better at what they do and much more focused on looking for the places where failure can occur.
I guess I've taken a lot in from all of you listening to the different comments, and I've just been writing notes and churning a lot of things over in my mind. There's been a lot of really good, all of the points have been good, and I've been trying to figure out, we've been focusing on, okay, what HRO concept is this? What HRO concept is that? I got halfway through and I realized that, sometimes we may fall into the rut of individualizing the concept. I think sometimes we need to realize that they might be interconnected. We heard, when I was watching some of the pre-work for this conference, this workshop, there was one segment in there about how, when things go bad, human nature is to fall back into a position that we're comfortable with, that we know. And so, in order to have difference of expertise, you need to have those folks, at a trained level that can handle the situation when it happens. So that, to me, ties into sensitivity of operations, that we need to make sure that we, keep our people trained. We don't just train them to a level, but we constantly engage them in the training and, repetition and work on that so that we don't have, so that we can then also recognize preoccupation with failure. So to me, it's like this web of interconnecting. The comment about, being the new person coming in, looking at a program and seeing weak signals. And this gave me that opportunity to do so and think about what happened. But also, I think, there was a comment about, the difference of expertise going both ways. And I think that the sensitivity to operations can go both ways too, because not only are we potentially going to be the new person coming in and looking at a program like myself, but we're also someday going to be that person who's been there for 10 years or 20 years. We also need to be mindful and open to allowing that new person to come to us and say, are we doing okay? What do you think we can do better to improve our program? So the reluctance to simplify, and I'm using the 5 terms, I didn't rewrite them. For us to be reluctant to simplify and allow that feedback from other people, so we can improve and we can grow. So thank you for all your comments.